What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Machiavelli Mills TV. So look, today on this channel, I'm going to do a character analysis of a character from one of my favorite movies ever, right? And that movie is Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained, right? I love Django because in this movie, we see the slave, Django, killing the oppressors, overthrowing the whole institution of slavery, like one by one. Not the whole entire institution, but on the Calvin Candy's plantation, right? We see him fighting back, killing the slave owners, killing all of the slavers, and freeing himself and his wife. And in the process, freeing other black individuals who are subjugated at Calvin Candy's plantation, right? But, you know, one character that I find extremely interesting is Samuel L. Jackson's character, Stephen. I really, like, for real, I don't know how Samuel L. Jackson did not win an Oscar for his representation or his role as Stephen. Stephen is one of the most despicable characters I've ever seen in my life displayed on screen. Not only is he a villain, he is just vile from, like, at the very root. For so many different reasons, but the main reason is that he is a black man who is a willful participant in the mastermind behind a slavery plantation, a slave plantation. He is the complete mastermind all the way around. And the way he goes about acting as if he's not, the facade that he puts up in front of other individuals, the manipulation that he shows throughout this whole movie, it's scary. It's scary. His presence is intimidating to a lot of the slaves. And the way he has a hand over everything is just like, what the fuck? Like, this character is really, he plays a house Negro to the core, and he's above a house Negro in this instance. Like, you know, in slavery times, you would have certain slaves that lived in a house with the slave owners, with the masters. And they would be they would develop Stockholm syndrome. And they would empathize with their oppressor, right? Protecting them, making excuses for their vile behavior, all because they are being treated good in a certain sense, better than the slaves who are forced to work the fields. But in this instance, Samuel L. Jackson is not a house Negro, really. He's really Geppetto, pulling the strings, working as the puppet master behind the plantation owner, Calvin Candy, right? If you analyze his character, the institution of slavery works well for Stephen, right? He's never been beaten. He's never been touched. He's never been in the field like the other slaves, because he's working a generational job, a job that was passed down from his to his grandfather, to his father, and now to him. And because this job has been passed along, he's raised Calvin Candy and Calvin Candy's sister, Miss Laura, right? He's raised them. And so he has taught Calvin Candy everything he knows, essentially. Calvin Candy has learned from Stephen himself. He's embedded his hate for his own people into Calvin Candy, which has led him to keep the slavery institution going on and on. So when I'm analyzing this movie, man, it's like Stephen is really despicable in every sense of the word. All he cares about is himself, truly. And he willfully serves the status quo, no matter how evil it is, no matter how morally despising it is, in order to benefit his situation alone. He got it good. He gets to sit in the big house, is what he calls it, kick his feet up. He gets to call and march around, give demands to other slaves. He's not beaten. He's not touched. He gets to chill. He gets to kick back. He even gets to sip whiskey with this slave owner. Like, what the fuck? When does that ever happen? In the scene, you can see that Stephen is not a slave in any sense of the word, because other than, he's just living under the roof, and, he is confined, I guess, to Candyland. He can only act that way in Candyland. But other than that, even when he reveals Django's masterful plot, Django and Schultz plot to Calvin Candy, he's sitting in Candy's chair like he's an equal, sipping whiskey out of a wine glass with his feet kicked up, explaining to him the whole plot, really breaking it down one by one. It's like, damn, this dude is not a slave. He's really he's serving as an equal to him. So not only is he complicit, he is the mastermind behind the rape, brutalization, and subjugation and murder of his own people because the institution of slavery brings benefits to him. In ways, he reminds me of so many different black people who rise to, they rise to certain standards in America. They get to certain places in corporate America. They're living good. They're reaping all the benefits of certain things. And they don't care what it does to their people. They don't care if it undermines the advancement of their people. They don't care if it is absolutely going to lead to the demise of their people in certain instances, in certain ways. They don't give a fuck because all they care about is their own advancement. Stephen he represents those characters in modern day America to the core, right? Now, of course, the institution of slavery is not here anymore. It's completely gone. But at the same time, there are systems in place that work tremendously against black people. And you have certain black individuals who play the role of Stephen who allow it to keep going by being willful participants in it, right? Like I said, in Calvin Candy's plantation, Stephen is Geppetto. He's the puppet master. Like, Calvin Candy is nothing more than a white figurehead. Seriously. And again, he is participating in vile behavior. He gives out horrible. Calvin Candy is a horrible person. I don't want people to ever think I don't think he's a horrible person. He is. He is putting on Mandingo fights where black men have to fight to the death for his sheer entertainment. We see a man, D'Artagnan, a black slave, who runs away from the plantation because he knows his body cannot keep enduring these Mandingo fights. He knows that eventually he's going to lose, which will result in his death. He runs away, he's caught, and Calvin Candy unleashes the dogs on him for the dogs to rip apart his flesh and kill him, brutalize him, right? But Calvin Candy is not the brightest tool in the toolbox, if you see, right? He can manipulate, he can set up all these different type of brutal situations. He's all for bloodshed of black slaves all across the board. He even has a black slave she-buddy he sleeps with, right? And he can say, oh, I'm not doing anything to her, but we all know she has no say-so in his sexual endeavors with Calvin Candy. He has every right over that. He's raping her. And even if she's participating because she has no fucking choice at all, right? So she participates in it. But nonetheless, Stephen's character, he is the mastermind behind everything, right? He calls the shots and manipulates Calvin Candy and Miss Laura into believing that they're in charge the whole time, right? When we see the scene where Django is captured where they force him to surrender after they capture Brunhilde, his wife, when he's hanging upside down and they looking like they're about to castrate him, Stephen comes in and says, I tell them hell. The N-words at the LeQuint Dickey, and LeQuint Dickey got it worse than that. When he say that, he said Miss Laura comes up with the bright idea to send you to LeQuint Dickey Mining Company, right? He hints at everything he wants to be done, and he allows them to say, okay, I agree with that. I want that to be done to allow them to look like they're the shot callers, but he's putting everything into play. For real, he's putting everything into play all the time. He's the mastermind behind everything. And therefore, he serves as an equal at this plantation because this is where it comes in. He's not a slave because he is a father figure to Calvin Candy and Miss Laura. He's raised them. He raised them in their hate of his own people. Which is like, it's so crazy, man. He is not a house Negro or subservient slave. He is like a father figure, and he's kept them in their hatred going on and on and on of his own people, right? And the act that he puts on. In the movie, we see that Schultz, he tells Django, like, hey, we're playing characters here. We're playing characters. I'm playing a character. You're playing a character, right? He says, we play these characters in order to get where we gotta go, get what we want, which is essentially to get his wife, Django's wife, Brunhilde, freed, and for him to get her freed. Stephen is playing a character as well, right? He plays the role of a meek and feeble old man in front of other slave owners, to appear non-threatening to other slave owners and to keep up the reputation of Calvin Candy, right? He doesn't want Calvin Candy to come across as a guy who is, letting his slave letting his slave act all out and act above what they allow slaves to act, So he has like a feeble old man who is just gripping and kissing the feet of his owner, of his master, when it's not that way at all. Even when we see when Calvin Candy first arrives back at Candyland with the Django, the way Steven is talking, he doesn't talk like that in closed quarters, in private quarters with Calvin Candy. But when we see him in front of the other slave owners, he's using all type of, he's talking in the cadence, the way a slave would, a slave who's uneducated. He's using certain terms and certain vernacular that a slave who's not educated would use. And we know he's educated because when Calvin Candy is arriving to Candyland with Django, we see Steven signing the checkbook of Calvin Candy. Like, what the hell is going on? That's how you know he's really Geppetto. What slave signs the checkbooks of their slave owner? You know, that's where you see this is not a relationship where you know, Steven is being beaten and he's just being forced to do this and do that. Oh no. He's just simply playing a role for people to think that, to appear non-threatening to the other slave owners and even to the other slaves to an extent, so that they can kind of let their guard down a little bit, and then he can go and trick on them to Calvin Candy, tell on them to Calvin Candy, and still rule with an iron fist. His presence is as intimidating as Calvin Candy's on Candyland. In Candyland. And you see it the way Broomhilda tells Steven, you scaring me, Steven, because he is trying to divulge that, hey, Django is your husband, and he is here to get you. Y'all ain't here to buy no, they're not interested in buying no Mandingo fighters. They're here to free you. And you know Django. He's trying to get her to reveal that information, and she gets scared because his presence is intimidating, because they know he is the right hand of Steven. He serves as really his as the long arm of the law for Calvin Candy. Steven serves as that, right? So Steven is playing a character. He's putting on an act in front of the other slave owners to appear less threatening, to keep up Calvin Candy's reputation, and also he's putting on this act and he's being violent and disrespectful to Django in order for Calvin Candy to appear reasonable, to appear a reasonable man in front of Schultz and them, so they can look like, oh my God, he's really a hospitable person, and make him really look good in the eyes of Schultz, and so on and so forth, right? Now, also, he's also being extremely over the top in his disapproval of Django, because he's playing a role because he wants the other slaves to know that Django here is an exception. He is not something that you can ever strive to be, nor should you ever strive to be it. And if you ever strive to be it, he will have something to say about it. You will pay for that severely. So he wants individuals on. He wants the other slaves who see Django. They see Django riding on a horse, something that a black man is not supposed to be doing in that time at all. Not only is he riding on a horse, he's brandishing a weapon. He has a weapon on him, a gun. That's not something a black man is supposed to have in that time period at all. But when other black slaves see that, they may become inspired to revolt. They may become inspired to be like Django, and he wants to cut that off immediately. He does not want Django's actions to encourage the other slaves. So Steven, being the ultimate vile human being, the ultimate horrible black man that he is, he disapproves, and he starts, I'm talking about berating Django, berating him. And he gets shocked that Django is talking back to him and talking crazy to him and the other slave owners with his chest poked out. And he said, oh, hell no, you're not going to be an inspiration to these other slaves around here. And because Steven sees himself as not a slave, because essentially he's not in Candyland, right? Not in Candyland. Anywhere else, he would be. Not in Candyland. So he wants to, we gonna cut that shit off? No, I'm gonna talk crazy to Django, because I want him to know I'm not here to make him comfortable. I'm not here to make it stay comfortable. I don't want him to think I'm accepting of his kind, right? And I was like, this is why I hated Steven to the core. And that lets me know that Samuel L. Jackson played this role extremely well. But yeah, the way that he talks to Django is just like, wow, this dude is really, really a coon to the highest degree, you know, because he doesn't see himself as a slave, again, because he is a father figure to Miss Laura and to Calvin Candy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And then we see in certain instances in the film, we see all these different nuances of him and his whole everything that he does is just an act all the way across the board. To the fact that he walks with a cane and he's not even injured, he's not lame, he's not handicapped at all. But he keeps this cane on him because, again, he wants to appear less threatening to other people so that they can, I guess, maybe let their guard down, or that, you know, he doesn't blow his cover. Because, again, at Candyland, he's living in a kingdom. He's able to roam freely in Candyland. Any other place, he cannot do that. So he wants to keep the slavery institution at Candyland running properly because he got it good there, right? He gets to stay in the big house where he doesn't want Django to stay at all because he knows he doesn't want anybody else to aspire to ever be in, any other black man or black woman to think that they can aspire to sleep in a big house like him. You know, and it's quite odd the way Calvin Candy, when he finds out that Schultz and I believe I'm saying his name right, Schultz and Django, Christopher Walken's character, when Django and Schultz, when he figures out their plan, when Steven reveals the plan to Calvin Candy brings out the skull of their former caretaker, right? Because that's Steven's role. Steven's role is to take care of the whole entire Calvin Candy family, make sure they're well taken care of all across the board. That's the role that his father played and the role that his grandfather played, right? So he brings out the skull of a former caretaker. I believe it's in relation to Steven, right? And he talks about how basically the brain of the black man is not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not black people. He's explaining that black people don't have the mental capacity in order to lead, in order to rise above oppression. In so many words, they don't have the mental capacity to rise above subjugation, and they don't have the mental capacity to thrive in certain areas. He doesn't even realize he's contradicting himself because Steven is the one who's even broken down the whole plot to him. Without Steven, he wouldn't have known that Django was trying to get over on him. Django and Schultz were trying to get over on him at all, which shows that the mental capacity is within the black people he despises because he got it from his caretaker and father figure, Steven. He found out everything from Steven. Steven is the one that cracked the code on everything, right? So, but again, it's just crazy how even the way he talks to Steven behind closed quarters, thank you, Steven. You're welcome, Calvin. The way he's being condescending and snark, and also like being, got a smart mouth. He being sarcastic, so on and so forth with Steven and with Calvin Candy and breaking everything down. It's like this dude is not. He's acting as if he's an equal to Calvin Candy, and this is like, man, this dude. He was just such a vile human being to really let your people get raped and pillaged and slaughtered. And he's even handing out orders. You can't tell me, that, again, from what even, Django's punishment. I'm stuttering and stuff. Even Django's punishment. That was the idea of Steven. So you can't tell me Steven hadn't come up with all the type of brutal punishments for all the other black slaves on the plantation. He's actually the mastermind behind every type of brutalization of black people on the plantation. He's calling the shots in the murder and vicious beatings of his own people, right? He's calling the shots in all of that. And he doesn't care about it at all. At all. Because he doesn't see himself as really a black man. At least, right? You know, he doesn't see himself as a black man. He sees himself as Steven, right? Kind of like O.J. Simpson. He's not black, he O.J. He's Steven. He's not no black slave. I'm not none of that. He looks at himself, he's the foster parent of Calvin Candy and Laura. You know, and it's so crazy, man, the way everything, and I'm breaking it down because it took me a while to notice certain things when I watched this movie over and over to even realize he was signing the checkbook of his slave owner. Like, I was like, what the hell? Like, where is that coming? Like, that is crazy in a sense. Like, they're not even supposed to read and write in them times, and he's signing a checkbook taking care of the finances for the plantation. It's just like, he is keeping everything moving and shaking. You know, but again, I believe that it's a great representation of certain black people who getting corporate, who getting prominent positions and look down on their folks, on their own black people, their own black brethren, and willfully be participants in, you know, railroading their own folks, their own people. And they don't bat an eye at it. They don't cry about it. They don't show any emotion to it. They can give a damn because at least they're benefiting themselves. So they don't care about how other black people end up at all. And that is a common practice that we see amongst black folks and a lot of black folks in corporate America. Not all at all. Not all at all. But there's a lot of black people who reach a certain amount of prominence and begin to look down on the black community and help certain institutions or certain things that are put in place to keep black folks behind in certain areas. They sign off on those things willfully, right? So Steven represents those characters, man. And I was going to make a point. I forget what I was going to say, but it was in the oh yeah. So when Django arrives on a plantation, he despises Django because he serves as inspiration to other slaves. But in a sense, Django is freer than Steven has ever been in his entire life. Why? Because although Steven gets to act as an equal in Candyland, it's only in Candyland. He cannot act like that at other plantations. He can't go where Schultz is taking Django to other plantations. He's telling him, this is my free man. This is my guy. This is my friend Django here. You know, he's a free man. He can't do that anywhere else. He's only free in Candyland itself, which is why he's trying to keep it running, because he knows he got it good there. He doesn't feel the weight of slavery at all there. He's calling shots, all of that. He is the king of the castle, basically in disguise. He's the king of the castle in disguise, man. He has a facade on, but he's really the king of the castle in camouflage. He can't have that anywhere else. Django is going everywhere else through Mississippi, Chickasaw County, all that, in some of the most racially, where the Klan is riding and thriving in, where slave owners are just whipping black folks for looking at them wrong. Django is going everywhere with a gun on him, riding on a horse, right? And Steven is like, what the hell? I can't even do that. So, oh no, can't nobody be freer than me. Oh, we gonna make an example out this. That's what he's saying. We're gonna make an example out this motherfucker. We're not gonna let this ride. Why is this N-word on that nag over there? Who is that dude? Why is he having these privileges that even I can't have? Why is he roaming the earth? Why is the earth his turf? And the earth is not Steven's turf at all. Candyland is Steven's turf. So it's just like, man, this movie, man, it's just like, I hate it.